GNT Show is intended for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. These are the voyages of the GNT Show. Our continuing mission to explore Star Trek storytelling, to seek out new worlds and interesting characters, to bowl we got where no show has gone before. Live long and prosper, bitches.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the GNT Show, episode 233. And for Michael Hinman, it is April 17th, 2016. To my right, your left, and across the table, wearing his robe,
Don't even try.
Don't even try?
Don't even try. I'm in my isolation suit because I fucking got a goddamn fucking flu. And there she is to my left, your right, in her surgical scrubs with the extra large top, of course. It's Terry Lynn.
Good morning, doctor.
Boy, those pens are sticking straight up. And there he is to my right, your left, with a gleam in his eye and a knife in his hand. Ceridium.
Kapla! What else is new?
And there she is with a look of motherly concern, and yet still charging by the billable hour. It's Jespa.
Infringement is futile.
What did you do this week? Coffee Clutch.
So I have this vat of chicken soup for you. Just dive right in.
Oh, I need Pulaski's chicken soup.
Pulaski's chicken soup is
All
what you
weekend
need.
long, Terry, I've been thinking of Pulaski's chicken soup.
Well, I could have made it for you, considering I had to I had to boil a lot of chicken breast for Casey this week.
Oh, I know, poor Casey.
Oh my God.
How is he doing?
He's
still
hanging.
shitting blood?
Yeah, still. Well,
God.
the blood's kind of gone away, but oh my God, the poor thing. Now Chloe's kind of got it.
Oh, okay, Casey makes me sad. Chloe it worries me.
Well, I think it was because Daddy was gone, you know?
Taken.
I think it was just because Alan was gone. And
You don't
You
think
mean Buster Poindexter?
you don't think it was something that maybe the kennel had maybe fed them that
Yeah,
dissuaded them?
no, because we
Okay.
give them their own food. They get
Okay.
fed their own food. The dogs, it was just a 10-day kind of thing. And my dogs are German Shepherds, and
They're
Um,
warriors.
Mike, you know those two.
Yes, I know those two. I love those two.
they're worried.
They are the biggest wusses ever.
Seriously are. So I went to
Planes set them off.
helicopters going overhead set them off. I mean, they're just,
A rabbit sets them all.
that's true. It's true. And it was a week of tumultuousness for them. You know, I went to Chicago, and instead of me coming home and Alan leaving, they got sent to the kennel for one night, and then they got bathed the next day. And then when they got home with me, of course, Alan went away for a week, and he got home last night. So hopefully things will settle down. Poor Casey, and I'm sure that the stress of being overnight in an emergency vet hospital didn't make things any better. But oh, that was a long night. I thought I was terrified of bloat. Big dogs can get bloat. It's when their stomach twists.
Oh.
And
Yikes.
yeah, and dogs who get it usually have like 24 hours less to live. I mean, it's like they can die within a day. So I was absolutely paranoid that Casey had bloat. So that's why I took him in at 2:00 in the morning. So, but everything, they're kind of okay. They're kind of okay. And they're still having little bits of issues, but they haven't thrown up or anything like that. So,
Have you tried my suggestion of when you do have to go to work or sleep, turning on several episodes and that way they can at least hear your voice?
I just turned on the TV for him this week, and that might have helped. I think it might have helped. If anything, it kind of drowns out some of the far away noises.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad idea, Mike, so that she can hear. And then you've also got Alan's voice in some of those. It's a good idea.
Because otherwise they're just watching the Democratic debate.
Exactly, and they're
I'd be
getting all
pissed off
pissed
too.
I don't want to say anything, but I caught Casey looking at some channels he's not supposed to.
Poodles. Naked poodles. No collar.
Oh my God.
Puppy Love 17, Puppy Love 18.
What
I
about
did
you
it
guys?
with the
What did
litter.
you do
Sorry.
this week? Yeah.
Okay, Nick goes first.
Nick first?
I got back Monday from my little jaunt out to Utah where I engaged in matrimony and went back to work. And then I got
And
this
then you got
Ebola
sick.
Zika and I'm dying. It hit about, I want to say it was Thursday. Yeah, it was starting Thursday. And I was like, okay, I can ride out Friday, you know.
Mhm.
And then I got the weekend. And then it hit Friday, and like I could barely keep my eyes open and work. Which is
Wow.
normal, but for a different reason. And then yesterday I slept about 20 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not even joking about that.
I believe you.
And the only reason I'm up now is because I woke up because I felt like my bladder was a brick. I woke up and it was. Remember the scene in A League of Their Own?
Oh.
Yeah,
Gee.
that was me. Madonna was behind me with a watch. Now, Terry, I did. Did you watch the Giants-Dodgers game last night?
No, because Alan got home last night and
You had to have sex.
we watched Star Trek actually.
No, that's just stupid.
That's just foreplay.
I had the game on, and god damn, when Vin Scully dies, we have lost a national treasure.
No
He was
kidding.
telling stories about 1958,
I know.
literally about announcing games in 1958
Yep.
in New York at the Giants, the Brooklyn Dodgers at the New York Giants, and the fans, and doing live reads of commercials, and the fans trying to screw him up. and he's so seamless.
He is. He really. Well, they
Arguably the
finally
greatest
named it.
announcer in sports.
They finally renamed Elysian Way in Los Angeles, Vin Scully Way.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, last week. It was about time.
Yeah. Is this his last year, or is he just doing it year by year?
I think he's just doing it year by year, see how he feels. I mean,
Thank you, Matthew Anderson.
he's the, and admittedly, me being the Giants fan that I am, but I grew up with Vin Scully too, and he really is. He's the best.
Yeah, I mean, Cubs fans talk about Harry Carey, and Yankees. We had Mel Allen and all of this, but purely from a purist standpoint, nobody's better than Vince. And Vince Scully does shit like, he'll say shit like Candy Maldonado at the plate. Candy's batting .357, except on Wednesdays in the month of June with the wind coming from right field to left and his mother in the left field stands. Then he's batting .728. What, Vin? Where did that come from?
He pulls it out of his ass, but you believe him anyway.
Oh, and he's just the best. And if you don't know who Vince Scully is, please look him up, because nobody can make a game. He's exactly why baseball is made for radio.
And he's exactly why he really is an inspiration to many others who go into sports announcing or voiceover or a lot of other things. The man really is a pro. He's like you said, he's seamless. He gets through a whole game. You know exactly what's going on. He doesn't need a color person, right? He's his own color commentator. And
You never
he
doubt what the
gave
score
rise to
is.
Bob Miller in for the Kings. The Kings announcer, by the way, the hockey announcer for the Kings. He's also considered to be one of the best in the business, and
Although I would
he
argue
has
Doc
that
Emmerich is the
same
best.
he has that same Scully kind of delivery. And then Johnny Miller in San Francisco is, again, sometimes when Johnny's on a roll, you can't tell the difference. I'm like, is that Johnny or Vin? Oh yeah, that's Johnny. It's very funny.
And the thing with Vince Scully is you always know the score.
Yep.
You always know who's at bat.
Yep.
You always know the count. He'll be in the middle of a really long story about ordering pasta, somewhere. But yeah, it'll be like, and the waitress came over. That's a high fastball, 3-2.
Yep.
And it's just so perfect.
But if anything, it gives you the flavor for what a baseball game really is. It's exactly how, even if you were sitting at the game, that's how your life would be. It would be like, okay, I'm talking to my neighbor. I'm drinking my beer. I look up and I see the pitch. Okay, done. Going back to my conversation with my neighbor.
Yeah, exactly.
See the pitch. And it's just, that's the way baseball is. I love that feel. And yeah, people say that baseball's too slow, and it's a slow game, but I'm okay with that. I love being a fan of hockey and baseball.
Mm-hmm.
The world's fastest game and the world's slowest game. And I just,
well, cricket can be awful slow.
Mikey, what about you this week? What did you do?
Let's see. I had got a story published this week on sciencefiction.com.
You did? Congrats. Oh, Jim the Fish made it. Congrats.
Yep. It's Doctor Who fan fiction story about Jim the Fish. So link is in the chat room. It'll be in the show notes. Check that out. Also this week, a little bit more Doctor Who stuff. Straight Outta Gallifrey had their 8th episode.
Nice.
This week. So link will also be in the show notes and stuff.
Excellent.
What else did I do? We Katie and I recorded a new bumper for our show, for this show.
I heard it. Yay. I love it.
So gotta check out the edited episode later when it comes out if you want to hear it.
And Miss Janet?
Well, I spent I spent a large portion of my week sick, actually. Yeah. My husband came back from New York City a couple of weeks ago and brought the plague, apparently. So very nice of him. And,
oh my God, what is it with the East Coast right now? Not cool.
I don't know. It's ugly. There's a lot of coughing with it, and doing a lot of homework. Homework for me is making memes. I know that sounds nuts, but that's a big part of this summer because I'm doing the big project that I'm doing. So
right.
I have all that. And
yeah, sorry, I'm laughing because it's somewhere in the middle of the world, somebody's kind of going, "You're making memes to graduate from school."
Oh, I know.
Somewhere in the world, someone in this room. I mean, I'm like, I want that. I want that.
I want that school. I want to go to that school.
It's also like, like I'm finding good author quotes because it's going to be social media for independent writers. And man, some people have got some funky, interesting quotes. And yes, I do have a quote from Harlan Ellison. Please don't sue me.
I put a link for something else that you did this week, Janet.
Oh, what did I do this week?
You analyzed the plaintiff's response to the second motion to dismiss.
I was going to say.
That was on top of everything else. So I might have had a slight fever dream in the middle of that, just so you know.
Yeah, you quoted Dolph Lundgren.
and the Swedish Klingon wedding video as well.
Ah, see? Yeah.
So funny.
Because what the hell?
Oh my God. I hope the two of you feel better. I really do.
I agree.
Oh,
this is better for me.
Well, I'm this week. It's somebody rightfully kind of tweeted us this week or posted in Facebook this week that this show's going to be 8 hours long because there's just so much to do. On top of the Axanar news, which we'll get to, I'm going to talk real quick about some of the links that we have this week. We do have a 50 for 50 this week as well. So I have a feeling that there's going to be some of these links we will not get to. But holy crap, let's start. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's start with, easy enough, the technology news.
Hey, I saw that on Star Trek. Technology news.
Mikey, you can take this one.
Just give me a moment to get it opened.
Beam me up, Scotty. Breakthrough in Star Trek style transporter technology, which I kind of laugh about because didn't just a couple of weeks ago somebody say it's completely impossible and you would just be killing yourself if you did it?
Well, philosophically, yeah.
I'd like to do it right now, thank you.
Oh, you poor thing.
Well, apparently there were still dealing with inanimate objects at this point.
True.
And in fact,
That
what
means Klingons.
Dude.
Okay. Moving right along. So far at this point, or the last we had heard, that they had managed to kind of transport information from one location to another. Now they're actually able to let's see, I'm trying to find the quote here, so bear with me.
It's all right. And it's kind of a long article, so
Okay, here it is. Scientists can pretty much now transport can transport the chemical and physical properties of an object with laser beams, which is an important first step. So they're moving on up. They're moving the goalpost, or the line a little bit closer to the goalpost. So before it was just some basic information. Now they're getting a little more specific about the kinds of information they're able to transmit over distances almost instantaneously. So this is, again, it's just moving closer towards the goalpost.
cool. I love it.
I need more Star Trek stuff. Product news.
All right, real quick, we're going to get to some new product news. CBS Products has come out with some additional products this week, and I kind of went gonzo over one of them. But this week, they're featuring the new Triton water bottle at StarTrek.com. And we'll put the link in the chat room on that one. It's kind of nice. It's a kind of one of those double, what do you call it? I don't want to call it double hull, but yeah.
It's a bottle inside of a bottle. When I had first saved this link, that wasn't even out yet. What was brand new were the pillows that are no longer considered new.
Yeah, those are cute. They
have TOS and TNG style pillows.
Oh, I love the TNG ones. Those are cute.
Yeah.
Look at all those.
So, I mean, that's what was new when I first saved this post.
Oh my God, those knee
Since then,
socks.
a lot of other stuff came out.
There's wine charms. They now have Star Trek Delta wine charms.
That can cooler.
The can cooler with the phaser. Kirk.
Yeah.
A journal, luggage tags. Actually, I would probably use those for a golf cart.
Hey, when I was traveling this week, my Captain Kirk, remember the luggage tag I got at the convention?
Yes.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that, I would have never found my bag.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. The cheese cutting board has been around, but
yeah. That,
by the way, that is a beastie of a thing.
It's pretty looking, though. But it does look big and heavy.
And let's see, another new product, or I should say some product news that came out this week via our friends at TrekCore. Oh my goodness. This caused a little bit, as it always does, a little bit of consternation. Hallmark, which does these beautiful Hallmark ornaments every year, has announced that, as it always does every year, at certain conventions, they release a convention-specific ornament. Star Trek ornament or other ornaments. It's not just Star Trek, but that you can only get at that convention. Well, this year they are kind of, I want to say, re-releasing the original Enterprise, the 1701.
This is probably a new variant rather than a re-release.
Well, it is a new. Well, I can tell you because I own every single one of them.
Okay.
This is it looks identical to the very first ornament they ever did, which is the original Enterprise. The fact of the matter is, though, is that the one that they came out with at the very beginning actually kind of has lights and sound, but you have to. The problem is you have to plug it in to bring up the lights and sound. So it has a wire that hangs out the bottom of it. This one looks like the wire is gone. If it does do lights,
no, it does have a wire. If you scroll down to the bottom, it's showing. Oh wait,
that's the original.
That's the 1991.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the one I have. So it looks to me like they're kind of redoing it and updating it for today's technology with batteries. If it even lights up, I don't even know if it does. Be that as it may, the keepsake ornaments, that the exclusive keepsake ornaments are only going to be available at San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, and one other. Which one is that? Do we know yet? Oh, Mission New York.
Mission New York.
So it frustrates a lot of people because they would like to be able to get their hands on these things, and why they're not making it more widely available at Hallmark stores is, do you want to hike up the exclusivity of something, or do you want to make it more available and for the millions of people who can get to a Hallmark store as opposed to a Mission New York?
Yeah,
so there's
no Vegas too.
And yeah, which kind of means to us, Hallmark won't be at Las Vegas this year. There was an outside chance that we were all hoping that they would be there, but apparently not. Hallmark is a big company, and instead of, I don't know, if they're there, then it would be a surprise, but it sounds to me like they're not.
Yeah.
Sad. I mean, I can understand. The thing is that when Hallmark goes to, they're going to Mission New York. That's strictly Star Trek, so it's cheaper. It's got to be just because it's cheaper to be in New York from Kansas City, I guess. I don't know. So, or maybe Creation blew it. You think it's possible that Pop knew how to talk to Hallmark and Creation didn't? You think? I'm sorry, I'm being snarky. Creation has been, everybody's. What is Ottawa Brewer? Oh, Tribbles themed beer. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm not, from what I'm seeing, this is not Federation of Beer.
Is it licensed?
Good question.
Let's see. Clock Tower Brew Pub says it's readying a new beer called Final Frontier, that will be available at both Starfleet Gala next month and the Canadian Aviation Space Museum. So probably in time for the Star Trek event that's going on there.
They actually are using a grain called grain triticale, which is a sorry, that's really funny. Which is a rye wheat hybrid first developed in the 19th century as a better resistance to the disease. Having triticale available was exciting for Fiore because he says that at some point in the original Star Trek canon, triticale will be modified again to become quadro triticale.
Mm-hmm.
The fictional food source of the Tribbles. That's hilarious. That's actually really, really funny. Yeah, that'll be interesting. They're going to be at the Canada Aviation and Space Museum. Isn't that where the Academy thing is kicking off?
The event that was the event that I was mentioning. Final line of the post. Final Frontier is officially licensed by CBS Corp.
Hot darn!
So
very cool.
Right on.
Well, what's that matter?
It's also
owned by the people.
It's also a limited edition beer, so get them while supplies last.
Oh, kind of like Romulan Ale was a long time ago.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Okay, this was the thing I kind of went crazy over, and yes, I pre-ordered it. I admit it. I pre-ordered it. Star Trek finally, after how many freaking years, has its own version of Trivial Pursuit. And for the 50th anniversary, the Star Trek Trivial Pursuit game is actually contained within the Galileo shuttlecraft model.
That is the storage container. I think that's a brilliant idea. It's awesome.
I love this so much, and very cool. It's really it's actually kind of compact. It's very, very cool, and it's cheap. It's not that bad. $30.
Have you seen the dice that comes with it?
Yeah.
They created their own dice. It looks like a phaser on one side, the delta on another, a planet on another. Can't see the other two sides, but still pretty cool. Well,
it sounds to me like it's the categories, of course. What probably. You ask is you roll the dice and you get the category instead of having the big old board like you used to. Not sure how you keep score, but maybe you just keep score on a pad. I don't know. It makes sense. But there's 1,200 questions containing questions about all 5 Star Trek television series and the first Star Trek, the first 10 Trek movies as well. So it's very cool.
I think we have an activity for dinner with GNT.
Oh, because it gets released on like June 24th, right?
Yep.
Hopefully it'll get to the house in time. I don't think there'll be a problem. And let's see, moving on. Remastered Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan is coming out on Blu-ray on June 7th. We knew that this was coming, but I don't think we had the release date at the time.
Nope.
So now it looks like we do have the release date for your shiny, shiny Khan.
Yep. So check it out. Pre-order it if you want it now.
And part of this will be the director's cut?
I think so.
It does. Sure enough, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, Director's Edition Blu-ray. The Director's Edition will contain the Director's Edition in high definition, the theatrical version in high definition, so it comes with both. That's very cool. Commentary by Nicholas Meyer and Manny Koto. How very cool. It's
Right on.
awesome. Where can people buy that? Pretty much anywhere, right? The Blu-ray
I would
pre-orders?
suspect. I think it's available on Amazon for pre-order, and then wherever else you get your DVDs and Blu-rays.
And for those who love cheese.
Yep. Here comes a pretty large helping from the Bradford Exchange
of Star Trek cheese. Is the Star Trek Bradford Exchange lamp.
It's a tabletop lamp with an illuminated transporter base. The base, I think, is actually kind of cool. It's got Kirk, Spock, and McCoy mid-transport, but it's very cheesy. The lampshade, it's got the Enterprise on it in space.
It's a lot. The beauty that we always talk about this. When the Bradford Exchange does something Star Trek, it's like it vomits Star Trek on something.
Yeah, it's Star Trek explodes.
And it just goes, Star Trek. And then it sells. It's amazing, but they sell.
Yeah, I know people who collect a lot of Bradford Exchange stuff. So it's like, yeah. At the bottom of the transporter base, it says, "To boldly go where no one has gone before." And then at the very top,
right.
At the very top, there's a little delta where
there's a little delta screw.
Yeah. So from tip to tip, it's truly Trek.
It's
truly Trek cheese. There you go.
Wow, I'll tell you. All right, that was it for products. Let's get to, you know what? We're gonna have to pick a couple of these movie news ones. Let's just pick a couple. Movie news.
Let's watch a Star Trek movie. Movie news.
Okay.
All right, so Justin Lin says he feels like he's making the biggest budgeted fan film ever, right? Like, gah. Now, I don't know if this is a good thing or not. What say you all? When the director of a feature film says he feels like he's making a fan film, do you think he means it in the good way?
I don't have a problem with it because Ryan Reynolds said the same thing about Deadpool.
And that's true. And it really was.
I think it's more the fact that he's a fan of the material going in. So for him, it is a fan film. It's also once again showing his support for the fan film. Various fan.
I think that's reading way too much into that. I think he's a fan, and he's just so happy to be getting. I'm sure JJ would have said the same thing about The Force Awakens, that he was making the most.
He
expensive.
did say that.
Yeah, that is true.
So I mean,
But he said that when he was making a Star Trek film. So
well, he lied then.
No, he said, "I'm not a fan of Star Trek. I'm a fan of Star Wars." Which
right, but
right.
That's what I mean. Is Justin Lin's a fan of Star Trek, so he's just saying.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think reading too much into it about fan films. He doesn't give a fuck about anything fan film, Horizon, Axanar, anything like that. They're not even on his radar.
Well, they were a couple of weeks ago when he...
Well, I don't even know if it really was.
You notice he's been quiet about that ever since, too. Yeah. Well, I tend to agree. I think that if any one of us were in a position of, say, directing feature films, and somebody said, "Gee, would you like to take a stab at directing a Star Trek movie?" I think all of us would feel the same way. It's like, oh my gosh, we get to make a movie. We get to make our, you get that excitement about being a fan of what it is.
Movie, I gotta tell you.
I a pair of links.
Everybody right now is Googling Kate and Allie.
Oh, God.
Mike, what were you going to say?
I put a pair of links in about theater experiences.
Yes.
Beyond.
That's what we're moving on to. Yep. Go for it.
So Star Trek Beyond, it's going to be presented in Dolby Cinema. So that's kind of cool. I'm not exactly sure what Dolby Cinema is.
Stop it. This is a Spinal Tap moment. It's in Dublin.
It goes up to 11.
So
Dolby is
just a sound system.
Yeah. So Dolby Atmos audio and Dolby Vision projectors, which are capable of HDR, which is high dynamic range, and HFR, which is high frame rate in both 2D and 3D. So I guess it's going to be like super clear and super vibrant audio. So picture and sound quality are going to be great, I guess. That's
cool.
What they're saying. And the second one I'm kind of excited about.
This is very cool.
Let's see. So Star Trek Beyond to be released in immersive ultra-wide Barco Escape theaters. This is basically they set up 3 screens, so they wrap around the audience almost, and so you get you get the full movie, and then you get bonus content to each side of you. And apparently they've filmed or created, I suspect it's mostly going to be CGI work, but they've created an additional like 20 minutes worth of film that's going to be presented at these theaters.
That is so cool
for this experience.
And for the people who are listening who can't see what we're looking at.
You know why they did that, right?
What?
Why they did that wraparound thing? Do you know why they did that?
To prove me right that cinema is changing and that cineplexes are going to die and high event theaters are going to come around.
Because they're scared of Axanar.
Yeah,
the
that's
greatest
exactly
Star Trek
it.
movie never made.
It does truly feed into what we were talking about 2 weeks ago, though, which is, the fact that cinema is turning back into event. That big cinema is turning back into event theater going again, and that theaters are going to start changing, and it's not necessarily going to be IMAX, and that what we're going to be looking at is widescreen panoramic films again, which cannot be held, for the most part, in what you and I would consider to be the regular Cineplex 35 millimeter screening sessions. So here we go. We have Barco Escape Theaters who have a wraparound kind of a 3-screen. Now I have to say, I'm not sure. It depends on how breaking it is for me to see those 2 big seams on either side. Might bug the fuck out of me. I don't know if I could, if that wouldn't piss me off halfway through a film, or if I would learn to ignore them. I don't know.
Do you ignore the bars and the top and bottom when you watch something in widescreen?
Sometimes it bugs me, I have to admit, which is why I really like having a widescreen television that actually fits. Even when I go to like Disney World or Disneyland where they have the 360, having the seams in between each one, that tends to bug me sometimes.
People tell me, watching a widescreen, people will be like, "Oh, that bugs me." I don't even notice it.
Yeah, maybe, and it's possible I wouldn't. It's absolutely possible I wouldn't. But it's weird to look at the photo. Yeah,
I just spit up blood, and the weird thing is, it's not mine; it's somebody else's.
Ew! Oh man. Gross. Well, either way, I think it's very cool. Mike, you said there's one in Fresno.
Yeah, which surprised the hell out of me. Fresno actually has something.
Where can these people? Where is there a list that in the TrekCore article about?
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, I had neither.
There is a link about midway down that allows you to kind of search for local theaters that have the ultra widescreen experience. So check them out. See if they've got one in your area. I mean, I'm tempted to go to make the drive down to Fresno, but it means either I get to watch it once in this experience, or watch it like half a dozen times at the local
Mike, live a little. Jesus Christ.
So it looks like just by pulling up the map, Barco theaters are in Seattle. Looks like there's one in Idaho, probably Boise,
Really?
in Minneapolis, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and then 5 or 6 of them in California for right now. So pretty cool. That's
Crazy.
very cool. Huh?
It's crazy.
I know.
Idaho?
They're
Really?
they are
It
planning
is
on
crazy.
adding more of those theaters, but in time for Star Trek Beyond's release, they're planning on like having I think it was like 20 different places where you can watch it. So if you happen to be near those areas, might be worth the effort.
I think it's interesting that all of them are west of the Mississippi, that they haven't made it to the east yet with those theaters.
They're probably that new.
Yeah.
I'd never
that they're
heard of
just-
them before until this article.
No.
They are brand new. This is something that you
They're
know,
probably converting certain theaters for it.
yeah.
God, I'm just thinking of a movie like Alien in
Can you
that. Oh
imagine?
my God. Because you're already
Ugh.
looking everywhere for this damn thing, and now you have even more to be looking at. Or playing a video game on that.
Yeah, and
Oh, if I wasn't so sick, I'd get turgid.
so from what I understand, the side screens are basically dark until certain situations occur.
Oh, that would be annoying. That would be annoying to suddenly have them flash on.
Mm-hmm.
From the example that they use in the article is, the bridge of the Enterprise. So you all of a sudden you're on the bridge of the Enterprise and you're seeing out from the corner of your eye Kirk walk. And then a couple seconds later, he's on the screen in front of you, and he keeps walking across to the other side and onto the third screen.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Another scene that they were planning on doing it is one of the space battles with the little drone ships. So, can you imagine? Oh man, that's going to be insane. That scene was already insane to begin with.
I just don't wonder if, and this is just me having no experience with this whatsoever, if it being black and then suddenly coming on and then going back off is just going to be too jarring for the
Does it pull
eye.
you out? Does it pull you out of the film as opposed to in?
Exactly, because
find
when you have
out.
the bar on the top and the bottom, it's there the entire time. So you don't, you know what I mean? You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
We'll find out. I mean, this is a new
I'm
thing.
not saying I'm
sure.
against it. I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm just saying I'm just wondering if it.
Maybe
Jar
we'll
me
see. Maybe if it becomes really, really popular, we'll start seeing films that have more and more of it.
Like they did with
Yeah.
3D after Avatar.
Right.
Yeah, this I think is like the first film that was that was actually that's going to actually be shown at one of these theaters. So, of course, it's going to take a while before the technology is more widely accepted.
Am I the only one that would love to have been in on that meeting and go, okay, Justin, baby, we need you to do this for us.
Justin, baby.
Justin, baby, you're a peach, I tell you, a peach.
There is
clam to me.
One more.
Teeth.
Yeah. We're moving on to the next link, which is one more thing about. Remember how the last Star Trek Beyond trailer came out and everybody was kind of worried?
Shitting.
Yeah, we were a little. Yeah, everybody kind of their butt puckered.
And that's why
Oh.
Oxenar said that
That's the one you want.
CBS is worried.
Yeah. And everybody kind of went, "Ooh, yeah, we're really not so sure about this because it involved. It looked like Fast and Furious Star Trek
Yeah, and
Right.
Lynn and Peg both
And-
kind of sort of almost condemned it
because they were like, that's not the movie.
that's not the movie we made. Yeah.
So TrekMovie.com retweeted.
Bob slipped.
What?
Now look here, Justin. See? You're a
Trek-
peach, kid. I tell you, peach.
So StarTrekMovie.com
Get the gams on Alice Eve.
retweeted Eric Davis, who tweeted, Paramount CinemaCon presentation is on. Simon Pegg told me he has seen the new Star Trek Beyond trailer, and it's awesome. Hope we see it. So the new Star Trek trailer, which goes hand in hand with the new news that comes out that the new Star Trek Beyond trailer will be released to a certain fan event, which will occur at Paramount Studios.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
It's Paracon.
Enough with the just releasing in tiny little shit. Stop. You're between the Hallmark shit and this and the other. You know what you do? No, you know what they do? They alienate a large section of the fans. You put something at the New York Comic Con only, you alienate all the people that couldn't make it to that. You do for San Diego Comic Con, you alienate.
This event's going to be broadcast live on Facebook.
Yeah. But what about those that are at work?
Right.
You won't see the live portion, but it'll still be available after the fact.
Well, so they're doing it in conjunction with, correct? They're releasing it like they're doing what Disney did, and that it was, even though they're releasing the trailer
they're throwing a party.
They're throwing a party.
The trailer release.
Right.
And then this is going to kick off, apparently, all of their marketing for between now and the end of until the film gets released.
And has anybody heard that tickets for this fan event are for sale, or is it just an invitational?
That I'm not sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm having a feeling it's going to be an invitational, and that it'll be just the fans that can afford to go. All right, so there we go.
Big Alec will get an invitation.
Who?
Alec.
I don't know. Maybe he did.
I thought you said Gallagher for.
So did I.
Like,
I would expect
Watermelon.
I would expect Gallagher to get an invite before Peters.
the watermelon.
And Gallagher too. The reunion.
I want to send a representative in to represent GMT.
I would love that. I would love shit. I'd fly to LA for that, but
I'm not sitting near Gallagher.
I'm not gonna say. Yeah, I've been to 2 Gallagher concerts. I've been there. Yeah,
a raincoat.
Terry.
Yeah,
I saw Gallagher too.
Okay.
His twin brother.
Oh.
Who he then sued for using the whole Gallagher gimmick. Seriously. Look it up. Gallagher 2. It's a real thing.
All right. And
it's
finally,
Gallagher,
Trekcore.
Roman numeral 2.
Finally, Trekcore has another article that talks about Idris Elba and discussing his character Krull, not Krull. Krull is something completely different.
Krull.
Krull.
Krull? Krullers?
Krull.
Krullers?
What? No, Krullers are donuts. Krull. Krall. Krull. Krull is the very cool thing that's like the 5-bladed star that. Oh, I'm sorry. I love that movie.
Matthew Anderson has just made me very scared.
So here's the thing. He says that his character, the villain in Star Trek Beyond, has a well-earned hatred of the Federation.
Interesting. I mean, that could mean a lot of different things.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm interested to see, what that means, what that really is about, and hopefully we get some of that background. I've heard that we're supposed to be getting some of that background in brief flashbacks, but
Well, it'll be interesting because if there's one thing that we've all kind of talked about with regards to the past 2 movies is that their villains have been less than layered.
Yeah.
So hopefully Simon Pegg decided to give Krull something unique that we can actually associate to and kind of get a real feeling for who this person is and why he is the way he is, as opposed to just he hates the Federation and everybody must die. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I have a link here. It's I have a link here. He hates the Federation. Where is it? Because he blames them for New Coke.
I also in that Trekcore article at the very bottom, he does Elba does talk about what his experience is dealing with this makeup. He's claustrophobic, and so you can imagine, having a rubber mask on your face for hours and for like 12 hours at a time. It would just. That had to play into his performance as this villain. That he's not really acting anymore. But in some of those scenes,
he's just one pissed off Idris Elba.
Pissed off.
He's angry. Why couldn't I be a Romulan with pointed ears and nothing else? Jesus Christ.
So is Miss Janet here?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. She is. All right. I think it's time. It's time.
It's time.
It's time.
Everybody sit back in your easy chairs.
I made something Star Trek. Unofficial Productions.
It is time to discuss the unofficial productions. And this week, CBS actually filed a responsive pleading to the opposition that was filed by Axnar a couple of weeks ago. And the responsive pleading was an opposition to the motion to dismiss. And it's quite entertaining. So, Janet, take it away.
Uh-oh, you're in trouble. Semantic shenanigans.
All right, and they also responded to the request for judicial notice. So I don't want to get into every little bit of minutia because it is on the blog. But
you read the blog because that's what she did it for.
Please,
Yes.
and then read the comments after, and the guy that accuses her of mental masturbation.
I'm touched that people are concerned about how much time I spend on these things. The thing is, first off, I like doing it, and secondly, I like to write, and it's certainly a good thing for me to write because I write all the time, and there's an interest. So we want to serve our listeners, and that's and if this is what they're interested in reading about, then we want to write it for them. And if they were interested in something else, we'd write about something else. So I think there's some sort of a concern that I live in my mother's basement and I have nothing else going on in my life. Well, first off, my mother lives a couple hundred miles south of here. So it's a hell of a commute to her basement. I'm just going to start with that. And secondly, they don't even have a basement anymore because they live in a condo. So it's underground. It's dirty. It's not very nice. So, but anyway, thank you for your concern. And the other thing is, I was talking about making memes for school, which I do. And, I'm on Facebook all the time and people seem to think that I'm on Facebook constantly. I am, but a lot of the time I'm doing it for school. So, a lot of these things that I do are sort of related to my education. So, don't sweat it. I'm fine, but thank you for your concern.
Oh my gosh! So the day before the time, what do you call it? The time limit to file. CBS files these two documents.
Yes.
And one of them, the actual opposition is actually pretty beefy, and the opposition to the request for judicial notice was kind of interesting as well because. Well, I'll let you get to it. So explain to people what both of them are.
Okay, so these documents were filed because they had to be. Because if this had gone in without opposition, then conceivably some of this stuff could have ended up in the official record. So what the plaintiffs have done, this is CBS and Paramount, and yes, I know that there's at least one blog post out there that thinks that Paramount is the only plaintiff in this matter, and that's not true. CBS is also a plaintiff in this matter. They are both IP holders of various aspects of the Star Trek IP. So, in the response to the motion itself, this table of contents is actually your really good outline of what the hell they're talking about, because first thing is that the defense had alleged that the copyright infringement was not plausibly alleged because they claimed that the works were not copyrightable. Now, what the defense meant, what the defense was trying to do, is to break down various aspects of the IP into their elemental parts. And this is where
let's use the Vulcan as the example of what they were trying to do.
Yes. So they were reducing Vulcans to their ears, for example. And just to, first off, 2 weeks ago when we talked about this, we were able to name off the top of our heads without doing any Googling, any research at all. We were able to name at least a half a dozen characteristics of Vulcans that were nowhere in the defendant's motion, but that are common knowledge, known characteristics of Vulcans that you don't even really need to be a big time super duper fan in order to understand that there's a mythos to this. There's a depth and there's a complexity to it that goes beyond just sticking a couple of ears on somebody and saying, "Hey, we're going to call it a day." But the other thing is that, and the plaintiffs cited case law for this, which is that you don't have to go down into the elements, and in fact, it's not necessary. That these continuing calls for specificity were really, I mean, they kind of didn't say it. But I'm going to say it here. These are pretty bare naked stalling tactics.
Yep.
They're a push to get, oh, well, we said it was in the state of New York. Okay, well, we need to know the county. All right. Well, it was in Suffolk County. All right. Well, we need to know the township. Okay, it's Huntington Township. Okay, well, we need to know the town in Huntington Township. It's Centerport. Okay, we need to know the name of the street. Well, it's Washington Drive. Okay, we need to know the number. You know. Come on already.
Exactly.
just get a hold of yourselves. That's absurd. And because what they were attempting to do was to reduce it so far into its elements that it would be down to things that aren't copyrightable. Because, for example, ideas are not considered to be copyrightable. Now, this is not patents. We're not talking about patents here. But the idea of people in space flying around in a ship, going from place to place, that concept, that's not copyrightable. I'm with you on that one. That's cool.
Yep.
But that's not what's copyrighted here. What is copyrighted here is, yes, that's a piece of it, but that's not the whole shebang. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes on, that there's races, and that there are costumes, and there's makeup and prosthetics and dialogue and naming conventions and whatnot. So that there's lots of this other stuff. Like they talked about the costumes, and they were saying, well, the cowl neck is not copyrightable. Yes, you're right. The cowl neck's not copyrightable. And they were saying that clothing is a useful article and it's not copyrightable. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. Clothing per se is not copyrightable. I'm wearing blue jeans. Blue jeans are not copyrightable. But here's the kicker. These are costumes. Costumes are considered a constituent element of a fictional character or several fictional characters. They were and what the plaintiffs are arguing is that this is a part of the pattern of infringement. And I would argue too that this is the pattern of infringement because we have there's a great deal of care and attention being paid, and I don't dispute that. There's an enormous amount of care and attention being made to get it exact, or as close to exact as possible. And that's the kicker. All of this care and attention is pretty much exactly what got them into trouble.
Right.
Because it's too close. And in fact, so much of it is so close that it's not just close, it is the article. You can't get any more identical than the same thing. And there are definitely pieces of the Karn uniform, which are taken from the Screen War Chang uniform from the films that Christopher Plummer wore. It's not the entire thing, but it's a lot of it. It's the same fucking thing, folks. If it's the same, it's a copy. It's a 100% copy. You can't get any more copyorama here, folks. This is a copy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. What are the elements of a copyright infringement case? Number one, plaintiffs have to own a copyright. Do they own a copyright? Hell yeah. They own several. They are licensed with the United States Copyright Office.
Thousands of them.
Yes. Thousands of them, kids. So that's number one. Number two, did the defense have access to the plaintiff's stuff in order to copy it? Yes, they did. Of course they did, because this stuff is out there in all sorts of forms.
And not the least of which is they gave links to that accessible information directly to the judge.
Hell yeah. And by the way, also that the defense has access to a lot of the screen-worn costumes and screen-used props, because defendant Peters is a prop dealer. So they had all this stuff. And then the third element, of course, is did they copy it? And yeah, side by side, we've already seen all the side by side comparisons. I don't want to get into them, and most of them aren't even in these two documents. It doesn't matter. We've seen them. Yes, you look at them side by side, you know it's the same goddamn thing. Nowhere in this, nowhere are the words intent, profit,
Right.
or anything else. There was no accident. There was no mistake here. This was intentional. How do I know it's intentional? Because there's tons of these. And I also know it's intentional. And here's the big one that I think is very, very intentional. I think this is fucking proof of intent. If there's no proof of intent, it's here. And it is, we've looked at this, the side-by-side comparisons of the Enterprise. One of them was a CGI and one of them was a model. The one that was a model was the canon original. The one that was CGI was the knockoff copy. And the copy had a shadow in it. And the shadow, which was pennant-shaped, it looked like a reverse Nike swoosh. It was in the original and it was in the copy. And ladies and gentlemen, CGI doesn't have shadows. You have to put them there.
Right.
That's what makes them more realistic looking. Okay. How did they get this copy? They quite literally copied it. They used Photoshop. They put a little fence around it. They copied it. They pasted it in. They did a bunch of blurring and other things in order to make it fit. I don't dispute that. Or maybe they did it pixel by pixel. Or maybe they sat there with a ruler and a tracing paper. I don't know how they did it per se, but I don't need to know that. Right. All I can tell you is the two are the same. And here's another piece that's a copy. A copy, kids, and you can't get around this one. Actor Gary Graham is reprising his role. Why the hell would you bother if it didn't matter to you that the same guy would reprise his role? If that doesn't matter, then get any schmo with a SAG card, folks, who can fit into the costume. But that's not what happened here. They got the same guy. That means they wanted to show the public that this was a continuation. You want to know why Axanar got into trouble? The money is part of it. Certainly it got attention, but it's not all of it. The copying and the closeness and the attention to detail and the quality are part of it, but they are not all of it.
Right.
The real thing, they called themselves an independent Star Trek production. And you know what that means? That means they ain't no fan film. They ain't a bunch of guys in somebody's basement. But beyond that, it means that they set themselves up as direct competition. Direct unlicensed competition. Yep. But what CBS and Paramount, what the copyright owners, what the IP owners require is that if you're going to make this stuff, that you need to have a license. And they did not. And they said, hey, we're just as good as they are. No. Sorry, folks. I don't dispute the quality. I don't dispute the care and attention. But when you say that you're the same, but you don't have a license, no, you're not.
I couldn't agree more. One of the things that came out in the response, or the opposition, I should say, I don't want to call it the response. I want to call it what it is, and that is an opposition to the motion to dismiss, is, the fact they really do kind of take the nose of the bull and kind of put it back on track. And that is, look, the defense here has made all of these statements about breaking down Vulcans into pointy ears and Klingons into language and, just breaking it down. And their response is, of course, in that, as you would imagine, that you can't copyright a musical note, but you can copyright the way that those notes are put together. And that's what this is a Vulcan is not just pointy ears. It's a sum of its parts that make it the character that it is. And that's copyrightable.
Exactly. What they say.
Interesting in what happened this week with the Led Zeppelin case.
Yes. Which another interesting case that has been going on for quite some time, actually. But
right, but you can't copyright a note, but you can copyright a series of notes strung together.
And the way that they sound, and if it's substantially similar, you can get in trouble. See, is Axanar substantially similar to any other Star Trek production, official ones? This is where exactly.
Now, on page 7 of the response, this is what CBS Paramount say, quote, Star Trek consists of many interlocking fictional characters, stories, and worlds. Defendants, an individual and a production company, who own absolutely no rights in Star Trek, created a 20-minute Star Trek film and are in the process of producing a full-length Star Trek motion picture, for which they raised over $1 million. Defendants have attempted to recreate the entire look and feel of plaintiffs' works and have stated that they are producing an authentic, quote, Star Trek film, end quote. In order to create these infringing derivative works, defendants have used numerous Star Trek elements, including copyrighted characters, stories, sets, costumes, etc., all without plaintiffs' consent, end quote. And the most important word in that entire paragraph is the word interlocking.
Right.
Now there's more, and I'm gonna get there in a second, but I'm scrolling through to try to find stuff. So
Okay, cool.
Vamp for a second, please.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Kind of going back on that touch on, what we call interlocking, or it's greater. It is the sum of its parts. It is the universe of Star Trek. It's the whole
shebang,
it's
not the individual elements.
Right. It's the loaf of bread, not just the flour. It's the loaf of bread, not just the eggs. It's the loaf of bread, not just the yeast. All of it has to come together to create the meal upon which you have created. And that's...
Anyone else hungry? All of a sudden.
So it is one of those things...
I'm going to make a grilled cheese. You want one?
Sure.
Okay. It's so good right now. And
I have a question. Now, I know that the novels are not canon. Hi, Dayton. But when the the Axolites try and say, CBS and Paramount haven't done anything with it in the last 10, 15 years, neglecting that there's been movies that have come out and things like that.
Or even the novels or anything like that.
The novels. Sure. How do the
even
novels fall into that, Janet?
How did those fall into it?
Yeah, because...
I'm sorry?
Well, I think it does. I mean, everything... The fact of the matter is
but they're not interlocking, are they? Because they're not canon,
of course
or is that canon just a non-legal construct?
Yeah, canon's not a legal construct. Okay,
exactly.
Judge Klausner and the attorneys on this case too, Aaron Ranahan, Jonathan Zavin, all of those people, they don't give a flying fuck about canon. That's not what's important to them. What's important to them is what do CBS and Paramount own, either individually or collectively, and what does Defendant Peters and Axanar Productions own, either individually or collectively? And the answer to those latter two is nothing. They don't own anything in this IP.
And CBS, Paramount can point and say, oh, look, but we had this series, The Fall, where all 5 books made the New York Times bestseller list.
Well, and it's not just that. I mean, they have a consistent history of providing licenses to
Hallmark.
other companies to make official Star Trek productions. They've done it with Cryptic Studios and Perfect World Entertainment. They have Star Trek Online. They've done it with Star Trek Timeline. So any game that goes out is part of that interlocking universe.
Think Geek and Hallmark.
Think Geek and Bye Bye Robot. All of that art. They're making art out of those interlocking
I just called her
universe.
Chastity.
Chastity.
I just called her Chastity. Charity, I'm so sorry.
Charity, we love you. And we're totally going to call you Chastity from now on.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
Charity, I'm very sick.
All right, to page 11. They're talking about a substantial similarity argument, which the defense has sort of semi-gotten into. And the plaintiffs cited, I love this case, Anderson versus Stallone. And yes, folks, that is Sylvester Stallone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just wondering, shit. When I have a cold, I sound like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky.
Yeah.
That actually sounded more like oh my God, Nog's dad.
Nog's? I did not sound like Rom.
You totally sounded like Rom. You did.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go fix the phase converter.
All right. So this case in 1989, it was about Rocky IV. And as the court in Stallone said, see, they quoted the court. They said,
Rocky IV is the one with Ivan Drago, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Said, quote, this court need not determine whether the characters in Anderson's treatment are substantially similar to Stallone's characters, as it is uncontroverted that the characters were lifted lock, stock, and barrel from the prior Rocky movies, end quote. Now just substitute Roddenberry for Stallone, Axanar or Peters for Anderson, and Star Trek for Rocky, and you've got the current matter at hand, so that it would say instead, this court need not determine whether the characters in Peters' treatment are substantially similar to Roddenberry's characters, as it is uncontroverted that the characters were lifted, lock, stock, and barrel from the prior Star Trek movies and books and series and video games and pillowcases and costumes and everything else under the sun, ladies and gentlemen.
Trading cards.
I love this case. It's wonderful. Plaintiffs don't have to prove similarity when it's the same damn thing. Plaintiffs have shown what they had to. Now, I want people to understand this. This is not them proving their case.
No.
All they needed to prove here was that the case should go forward. Have they proven that they can make this case go forward? You better believe that there's enough questions here that it should.
And here's the other thing, too, is that what frustrated me about the motion to dismiss was that it really wasn't a motion to dismiss. There's still a triable issue of fact that they were spouting upon in their motion to dismiss. So it wasn't something that the case couldn't have been dismissed upon because there was still something that needed to be decided. My frustration about that is that they were bringing up a bunch of what I would call premature bullshit that needs to be dealt with within discovery, which was you need to be able to do this within a request for motion of a request for production of documents, a request for production of material, a request for production of for admissions, a request for admissions. These are things that are done within the context of litigation, and there is a process to them. And they were kind of subverting that process with the motion to dismiss. I was very pleased to see that CBS kind of attacked them on that in their opposition to the motion to dismiss by going, you know what, these are things that we will be more than happy to discuss with you within the context of discovery. We just need to go there. You need to allow us to get there. And yes, it was a stalling technique. And you kind of have to give her a little bit of credit for trying it. But now, mind you, this is my own personal opinion, but what bothers me the most about it, again, is that really what they're dealing with here is a way to stall the whole situation so Alec can hide his money. That's just
so
me. I'm so sick and tired of hearing, and it's so we talked about a couple of weeks ago, which is, you know, this group of quote unquote private investors that's going to come and release Axanar Productions of its liabilities for 3 years of rent on a studio that should never have been fucking paid for with donor money to begin with. They needed to make a fucking movie. And if they had done so, they wouldn't be in this situation now. And that's the God's honest truth. Axanar would not be in the situation that it is in now. And if they had just made the fucking movie, I don't care. If it would have been awesome and perfect and everything like that.
I have a naive question for you.
Okay.
You said that the fact that they call themselves an independent Star Trek production, right?
Yes.
If they had just said independent Star Trek fan film, would a lot of this not even be happening?
I don't know. I mean, I can't get into the
but I mean, I know it's naive, but just the words production and fan film, because they mean something different.
I think it was, to be honest with you, in my opinion, I think it was, again, it's kind of a sum of its parts kind of thing. Instead of making a fan film, what they did was they created an independent company to make a fan film.
I think that there were a lot of things going on, and that the plaintiffs were watching this entire train wreck going on.
Oh yeah.
And and they said to themselves, okay, well, there's number one, there's a significant amount of money. Number two, nothing's happening.
Please don't cross that line. Now they've crossed the line.
Yeah. Now we're seeing that nothing's happening, so we wonder what's going on with the fans. Whether they're getting what they want. Now we're seeing there's a location. Now we're seeing a donor store. Now we're seeing sushi, the creation of a company to do fulfillment, a studio, et cetera, et cetera. Now, never mind
reincorporating prop works the same time.
Yeah, never mind the success or failure of any of these ventures, folks. That's not an element here,
right?
But what we're seeing is that this donor money and donor goodwill is being used to create a whole bunch of other things that are not film of any sort. And so beyond the fact that, yes, this is an infringement, I think that also the plaintiffs are looking at this and saying, good Lord, look at all this other junk that's going on here. This could be a big problem, and this could be damaging to our brand. And yes, the cause of action is the infringement, but there's all these ancillary things happening, and they could also be damaging to us.
Right. One of the things that I did this week was started to listen to again our 2013 interview with Alec when this whole project started. And his intent at the time, of course, and always it had been when we first started speaking with him, was to have a full-length feature film, 90 minutes long. He was and he even was very adamant to remind us that this wasn't going to be an episodic thing. It wasn't going to be like Star Trek Continues. Right. This was going to be a full-length feature film that was going to be 90 minutes long, and that's what they were seeking money for. And then it changed over the course of the next 2 years, where money came in, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, instead of just making the film, we're going to ask for another $600,000 to make the film, but now we're really going to want studio work and all this stuff. And that's when, to me, and subsequent G&T episodes, when we started to question that moral play that we had, that things were different. Things were different with Axanar. Admittedly, they were also different with Renegades. Renegades was also walking a very fine line of things that, that were definitely bringing up our antenna. And it wasn't just paying their actors, although I had a significant problem with that, because I thought, right. It was a slippery slope kind of thing to me. And so listening to Alec from 2 years ago and what he was pitching and how that changed over the course of 2 years is very concerning. And I think really does show exactly why CBS was like, we can't let this happen. We have to control this, or we will lose control of this entirely.
And unlike some people, I've always thought from the beginning that interview in, what was it, 2013?
Yeah.
That was the dream, the 90-minute motion picture.
Right.
I think that once things started to get good, it just became mission creep. I don't think it was anything nefarious. Oh,
once
God, Alec. Oh, God, Alec, look at this. I'm actually saying something nice about you, you scumbag. I don't think it was anything nefarious or anything. It was, look what we've got this. We can make it even bigger and better. Let's do this. And it outgrew what...
To a degree. I think where things, for me, at least me personally, where things crossed the line was that inherent conflict of interest, wherein it wasn't just mission creep. It was mission creep. There is no doubt about it. It was, look at the talented volunteers of talented, not even volunteers. Look at the talented people we can pay to make these amazing effects. Look at the talented people that we can pay to make these things that will make our production so much better. And I can understand the passion of really wanting to make it as amazing as possible. But where things changed for me was look at all of this money. I can actually create the studio and make other productions that I've always wanted to make on top of it, which aren't Star Trek related. And now I can create Axanar Studios, and now I can make movies that I've always wanted to make. And oh my God, I have Robert Meyer Burnett, this talented director, who's willing to make these films that are written by David fucking Gerald. And it's not going to be Star Trek, but you know what? This Star Trek thing has given him an open door that he didn't realize was crossing a proverbial line. And that's, to me, that's where he crossed the line. I don't care what CBS thinks. I really don't. But for me, that's where Alec Peters crossed the line. And that was, he built and was building his future business based upon money that came from people who wanted a Star Trek film. And that's what it was. This was Star Trek money. People would have paid that money to see, and they were paying that money to see a Star Trek film. And he took that money and made other businesses out of it. And I felt that that's what really is truly just heinous. I thought that here's a person who's supposed to be a brilliant entrepreneur, and every time I turn around, he's either in bankruptcy or he fucks it up because he's not getting or grasping the understanding that, there are certain moral lines you just don't cross, and he did. So there you go, Alec. That's how I feel. If you had just stuck to your guns, made the goddamn movie, I don't think, and not created Axonar Productions or Aries Studios or anything along those lines, if you had just made the film, you may not have been in this shitstorm that you are now.
Or it wouldn't have been as big, or it would have taken longer for it to happen.
Maybe too.
Instead, what we have is, this is I've said this before, it's a very steep cliff for the defendants to get over. Now, I want to get into the request for judicial notice briefly. It's a shorter document. The first thing I want to point out here, what is a request for judicial notice, okay? The idea is that you're supposed to be putting forth facts that are... they're known in the local jurisdiction, and they're not in dispute. That's basically what we're talking about here. So that, for example, let us assume that for whatever bizarre reason, his date of birth was somehow important in this matter. It's not, but let's just say it was. You get his birth certificate, and everybody says, yes, that's authentic. There's a seal. We love it. It's great. It's entered. We take judicial notice that this is his birth certificate. Now, yes, people do dispute birth certificates. We know that from the birther movement. So maybe that's not the world's greatest example. Maybe a better example is we take judicial notice of the fact that the capital of California is Sacramento. If that was important in the case, yes, they could take notice of that, so that nobody goes around and spends 20 minutes in a courtroom or a bunch of time on a motion proving that Sacramento is the capital of California. It's done, it's proven, we're here. But what plaintiffs said is that defendants, their request for judicial notice should be denied for several reasons, including because it seeks judicial notice of, quote, number one, legal arguments. That's right, those should not be in here. Number two, documents that are not public records. Absolutely, because they're putting in things like a chapter from H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Number three, documents containing hearsay. What we remember from talking about hearsay is any statement that's made that's that's unsworn, such as we're talking today, that is being used for the proof of the truth of what you're saying. So that if I tell you that I have blue eyes, it happens to be true, but it's still hearsay because it's not sworn, and we're trying to prove that what I've said is a truthful statement. But if instead we use my statement to prove something else, such as that I can speak English, or maybe that I'm here at this particular time, 10:31 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we could use it to prove those other things. And there's a bunch of other...
the statement itself is the hearsay, but how it's stated is fact.
Yes. And the fourth thing that they say is documents that are not properly authenticated, end quote. And authentication can happen in all sorts of ways. I mean, if you really wanted to put a chapter from H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds into the record, you would need somebody to be swearing that this was a real live copy of this particular document. And so the Federal Rules of Evidence, Article 2, judicial notice, Rule 201, the scope is as follows, according to, this is straight from federal rules. The kinds of facts that may be judicially noticed. It's whether it's generally known within the court's territorial jurisdiction and can be accurately and readily determined from sources whose accuracy cannot reasonably be questioned, end quote, which is things like the patent office says this is a patent. Okay, yeah, that's a patent. So we had a whole bunch of stuff in here that was thrown in here.
So deciding to use, I don't know, one particular online dictionary would kind of sort of fall into that. Would fall, yeah. So it shouldn't be considered one of those verified sources, right?
Absolutely not. And yeah, that's one of the things that they get into is they're talking about judicial notice and what you can judicially notice. And one of the things they say is that your definitions.
Did we lose her?
She's probably coughing.
Poor thing.
Sorry, no, I'm finding stuff. Hang on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
I thought the Axolites got in and started jamming your transmission.
Oh, okay. Here it is. The plaintiff further notes that reliance on one source of definitions is unwise, and there is no common knowledge, such as would be required in a request for judicial notice, that any of the defined words has just one meaning in all contexts. So what they say on page 6 of this document, they say, quote, as a threshold matter, these dictionary terms have no bearing on this case. Whether or not the Romans worshipped a god of blacksmithing named Vulcan is irrelevant to the question of whether plaintiffs have properly stated a claim against defendants for infringing the Vulcans depicted in the Star Trek copyrighted works, end quote.
Yeah, especially also considering that they pick and choose which dictionaries they want to use for which terms, because even in some of those terms, if you search on one of the dictionaries that they quoted for something else, there's a Star Trek reference there pointing directly there. So it's like,
oh yeah,
they're picking and choosing the ones that don't have references to Star Trek in order to help make their case.
Yep.
Janice.
I know.
Hi, Janice.
I do it all the time, and it's because I love them both. So there you go.
I know. Question. So the term mockumentary, when first used, everyone else thought of Spinal Tap or things like that as a mockumentary.
Right.
It's a mocking, a making fun of type of thing. And then you said, no, there's also this, which I understand, but I had never heard it used in that term before. It was always meant in the Spinal Tap way.
Well, that term was not put into the request for judicial notice. So
I'm just saying words that going with definitions.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're screwing around with the language. I mean, for one thing, they didn't use the Oxford English Dictionary, which a lot of people would consider to be a much more comprehensive work.
All of my definitions come from the Urban Dictionary.
I mean, from the OED definition of Vulcan, it says. Let me see if I can find it. Give me a second. I'll be right there.
Star Trek in there, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was one of them that included a Star Trek reference.
I'm sorry, I'm so distracted right now. The Blues Brothers is on.
The Blues Brothers is on?
Yeah.
I'm on a mission from God.
Well, right now they're singing with Ray Charles.
Sweet. So
all right, this is annoying me because I can't find what I want to find. But be that as it may, we all agree. I think we all agree, and I think you don't have to be on any side, quote unquote, in particular, to agree that the English language is a myriad and diverse hodgepodge of terminology.
Is a fucking mess.
There's over 1 million words in English, and it just goes on, and most of them have multiple definitions. So just citing
shit.
Yeah, so just citing one definition is ludicrous. No matter who you are, no matter what you think, no matter if you think that Axnar is the greatest thing since sliced bread and you worship the ground that Mr. Peters walks on, that's fine. More power to you. You go, girl. But bottom line is, I think you have to agree that there are multiple definitions for most words in the English language.
No, they don't have to agree to that. If Alec tells them that there's not, then there's not. Here's what I don't understand.
So,
and it always comes back to this for me. How can they claim that this is the greatest thing ever when it hasn't been made by their own saying it in court documents that this thing hasn't been made?
Because this is yet another paradox. And that's the other thing I want to point out. And I'm not, I was asked about this, like, why are you spending so much time on this? Why is this so important to you? Why are you talking about this? Why are you talking about this? Well, one of the reasons why I am talking about this, why I put this stuff out here, is because there are a lot of disparate sources of information. A lot of stuff in a lot of places that's pulled from Facebook, from Twitter, from their blog, from our old interview, from Axa Monitor. Hi, Carlos. From 1791 News. Hi, Michael. And all of these other places. And when you put them together, then you start to see this ton of contradictions. There's lots and lots of contradictions. Things that by definition cannot both be true at the same time. And I want to put this stuff out here in writing so that persons who are interested, whether they're donors, whether they're the press, whether they're lawyers, whether they're just people on the street who are kind of interested because, general public, these are public documents. This is all a matter of public record, that anybody can look at these two things or four things or 20 things or whatever side by side and say, they can't both be right.
Yeah. I think that, again, what was interesting and what I really love about this whole system, and I have to say I really do love it, is the fact that, as unfortunate as this whole situation is for the people who love Axanar and the people who have donated to Axanar and people who love fan productions to begin with, which is pretty much all of us. The one thing that we're getting out of this, and I think is very important, is that a lot of people really don't understand how the American judiciary works, how litigation works. And I can't thank you enough, Janet, for being there to help guide through this whole process so people understand. They may think it's tedious. They may think that it's stupid. That's okay, because some of it can be. But the fact of the matter, this is how our country works. This is the very basis of how we resolve our conflicts. And we do so with very, very particular sets of rules that are based upon a particular language. And language and words mean everything. And what's so unique about this case is seeing how their motion to dismiss was, regardless of what I feel about it, their motion to dismiss was definitely meant as an attempt to kind of baffle, to kind of break things down and make things messy, to say, you can't make a Vulcan because you can't copyright a Vulcan because pointed ears can't be copyrightable. But at the same time, now as a citizen, you get to see that opposition come through, and that opposition kind of comes through and says, you know what? Okay, we are going to address those concerns on a point by point basis. And this is legally the reasons, the case law that gives us the reasons to say, no, you don't get to do that there is a sum to the parts. Those are copyrightable. And here's the case law that upon which our country is founded and moves forward and continues to evolve. People are afraid of law because they don't understand it. I'm loving the fact that you are helping so many people who have no experience with how law works get that experience now and educate them through something so real as a case that's continuing to move forward. Thank you, Jen. Again, I can't thank you enough. I think what you're doing is spectacular.
Oh, thank you. I'm like I said, I'm enjoying it. And, one of the things I really want to point out to people is because so many people don't really understand their rights. And you're right, that they don't really know how it all works. Everybody loves to make fun of the lawyer. We love to quote Shakespeare, first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But bottom line is this, love or hate the law, whatever. But legal cases, this stuff exists folks, and yes, we have a very litigious society, and maybe and that's difficult, but this stuff exists so that we don't resolve our problems by dueling.
Right.
So this is a huge part of the civilization, of our civilization, and actually when we get into talking about Measure of a Man, I'll tell you how pissed off I was about that, because I hate the fact that Star Trek hates lawyers, because they seem to think that we are, primitive, and oh my God, we should be beyond that and above it. You know something? Fuck you, Star Trek. Sorry, but fuck you when it comes to lawyers. You should have lawyers. You should have a goddamn JAG on every single ship that's more than 6 people. And the fact that they had Riker and Picard doing lawyering was absurd. You don't just become a lawyer for 5 minutes of doing some research. You become a lawyer from years of study. It's not something that you can just do off the cuff in an afternoon.
Kind of like not having a historian on the ship with Picard when they're charting new planets and solar systems,
and meeting Scotty,
and
oh my gosh, I know,
Q and all of that.
Sorry, I take it back.
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
love
with
Star
you.
Trek,
I'm
but
with
seriously,
you on that one. No, we'll be talking about that. So,
ooh, Matthew Anderson, good pull. I'll be your Huckleberry.
So and I just want to tie one thing up when it comes to the request for judicial notice, and their opposition to it. Again, I want to the reason. Can you explain to people just kind of the very basic, the very broad reason why anybody would want to have or to file a request for judicial notice? It's really just an avenue or a means to ask the judge to take a look at something, correct?
Yes, but I think what they were trying to do here is they were also attempting to control the narrative.
Yeah.
Because as we saw when they say that the only thing that a Vulcan is a Greek god or a Roman god, and the only thing that a bridge is X or whatever, that when we start to parse out the language to its syllables, once again, this is everything going down to the atomic level. It's the same kind of argument that we're just going to deconstruct everything, as if this was. As if this was the art scene in 1993, in Soho. So it's the same sort of a concept of that if we can break it down into its elements, and the elements aren't copyrightable, then the judge has no way to rule except to say that it's not copyrightable, and that the jury has no way to rule except that it's not copyrightable. So they were attempting to pigeonhole, to put everything into a little corner here, and with this motion, with this response, and with the response to the request for judicial notice, the plaintiffs shot back and said, Nope. This is not just one definition. It's not just one area. It's not just one little pigeonhole. It's not just a bunch of atoms strung together. You string atoms together, you get me. You string atoms together, you get the tissue box that's on my on my desk. Just put them into different ways. And I have uniqueness, I like to think. Mm-hmm. And so that my uniqueness is more than just the fact that I have a certain percentage of hydrogen and oxygen. My uniqueness is based upon my genetics, my education, my experience, my age, my everybody I've ever talked to, everything I've ever thought, everything I've ever read, viewed, etc. And the same is true of all of you. And what is true about Star Trek, and what we all love about Star Trek, and why there's a show, why we have had a show for years about Star Trek, and we are very fringe, let's face it. We're not, sorry, but we're not huge, biggies here. But be that as it may, the reason why this exists, why we're all together, is because we feel that this IP is unique and it's special. Yeah. And what these motions have been doing is to try to break it down into its constituent elements in an effort to show that it's not special. Well, screw you, folks. It is special. And I know that the court's going to take notice of that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I realize again, my own feelings is that I know that when Erin and her team was trying to do was baffle them with bullshit. But the fact of the matter is that Yeah, we can see right through that. So it is time to move on. And again, thank you, Janet.
You're welcome.
It's like I said, it's such an interesting case, and I love the fact that we're covering it in such detail because it really is not just important to us as fans because of how this will inevitably affect all fan productions, but also as a great learning tool for people who do not understand how litigation works. And it's great because if people can get in, even if they don't agree, I don't care. The fact is, we're talking and we're having a conversation. Yeah, sometimes we yell, but we're having a conversation about something that's important to all of us, and we're using exactly what this country was supposed to do and use it. And that is, this is our conflict resolution, which is better than any other country's way of dealing with shit. I'm just telling you, it really is. It's awesome. So,
let me just throw one thing out here quickly. Actually, Jay Galloway asked about the video blog that had come out recently. The only thing I want to say about that, because I agree with you, I want to move on too, is that if I was their lawyer, I would be telling them to shut up. And I would have told them to shut up all along. And I suspect that that's exactly what their lawyer has been telling them. And I feel badly for their lawyers in some ways, because that should have been job one, to stop the social media flow.
And if she isn't,
well,
I would be highly concerned.
Yeah, I don't dispute. I think that Winston and Strawn, I think they've done a tremendous job. I think they've tried very, very hard, to try to make a silk purse out of this, but it ain't going to happen, folks. Now, one other thing I also want to point out is that I had asked, and people were very kind. They were very, very generous and so lovely. I had asked if people were interested in other legal aspects of our fandom and other fandoms, whether they'd be interested once the whole Axanar Mishigas is over, if they'd be interested in hearing about other stuff. And apparently people are. So thank you. And this summer is going to be nuts for me. Yes, I'm making memes for it, but it doesn't mean I don't have a shit ton of work to do.
Right.
But I am more than willing to research and dive deep into this stuff because A, I think it's fascinating. B, I think people deserve to know. I think that the law is an area that is so underappreciated, and I think people are undereducated in it, which is really unfortunate. And the next one, Mike and I were talking about it this morning. They covered it in the New York Times magazine section today. I just came up with, oh my God, this is so awesome. Serendipity has fallen into my lap. Yes, I am going to be blogging about sea monkeys. Woohoo! Anyway,
is it the Chinese sea monkey thing?
There's a whole copyright infringement thing with sea monkeys.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Anyway, we're going to move on to stuff, and I have to go and cough, so excuse me, but I'll be back.
Once again, we just love having Janet on the show, and it's going to be so much fun to continue to have her on the show. And again, G&T kind of grows and evolves with the fandom, and everybody, thank you so very much for just the support that we've been getting, not just in the coverage of Axanar, but also in our frank opinions on them as well. But also just because, again, Janet's busting her ass at probably the busiest time in her life in order to do this for our listeners. So please, you guys, send her thank you notes, send her and if
send
you like
pie.
Send her some pie. So
you don't have to, but thank you.
We are going to be moving on to the 50 for 50.
What's your favorite episode? G&T shows 50 for 50.
All right, Mike, what's our disclaimer?
You have only yourselves to blame.
That's right. Long time ago, G&T show sent out polls that asked our listeners to rate every single episode of Star Trek live action episodes, television episodes, to determine what the top 50 episodes, our favorite episodes from our listeners would be. Again, you only have yourselves to blame. So if you don't like the fact that something didn't make the list, or you do like the fact, or how should I say, you don't like the fact that something did make the list, then
I've already started designing "You Only Have Yourself to Blame" T-shirts.
Only have yourself to blame. And this week we are going to be discussing 2 episodes, of which I don't have the episode numbers or dates or shit like that. I just know which ones they were. Thank you, Mikey. Which ones are they?
No, this is Alan. Hi.
Oh, hi, honey.
How are you?
I thought you were still in bed.
Hey, Buster Poindexter.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Good. Kojiro's here.
How was your trip, sir?
It was great, actually. It was fun. We had a good time. We were down in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan, Cabo. Very nice. It was a very nice trip. Thank you very much.
He got to go on a 7-day cruise with my bestie and his mom.
I feel like I drank the water.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Alan drank the tequila.
Yes, I drank the tequila and the beer and everything else that went with it. So, 50 for 50, huh?
I hate your life.
Yeah, I know. But somebody has to live it.
Son of a bitch.
Meanwhile,
you left her at home with a dog shit and blood.
Yeah, well, you know.
It's okay. I'll do it someday in the future. Not shit blood, but leave him with the dog. But whatever.
It's a trade-off, you know. So anyway, 50
so
for
what 2
50.
episodes?
So yeah, we have 2 really good ones to discuss today. The first one is a DS9 episode from season 7, episode number 8, "The Siege of AR-558." And I can't talk now. This is a great episode. The premise, again, it starts off with Cisco reviewing casualty lists from the Dominion War, and is quite depressed because obviously he's seeing the lists grow and he's seeing more of his comrades falling, and
he's kind of getting glazed over. He's getting that idea of the names don't mean anything to him anymore. It's just a list.
Right.
It's become so commonplace in his life that he knows it's wrong. He knows that it's wrong, that it's just a list, but he's feeling bad because he's getting glazed over.
It's become overwhelming to this extent. Well, they have a mission and they have to go to this holding, this planet AR-558, where the Federation has taken from the Dominion, and it's got a communication array that they think they can tap into, and they're holding the position. And of course, the Dominion is trying to take it back. So it is the front line. It is the war zone, and they are there to send supplies and resupply the base. And of course, they get there and they find a very worn-torn, dilapidated unit who's been there way too long. And what's really amazing?
60 days. We've been here for 5 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the few times in Star Trek where we really see the consequences and the toll of war. I mean, we see a lot of space battle and we see a lot of things there. And when a ship explodes, you don't see the faces of what's going on here. And this is one of the few times where we see the faces of the people on the front line fighting hand to hand. Again, something very rare for Star Trek. And I think that's what makes this episode such a standout episode. There's a lot of hard concepts here that we don't get in that sometimes homogenized and sterilized world of Star Trek. What we see soldiers who are so worn-torn and have their personalities have been modified from just being in constant jeopardy, and that sense that they're going to could die at any moment. There's this added element where they talk about the Houdini mines. These mines that just appear out of subspace, and you could run into it and not even, a place that you were perfectly safe 5 minutes ago is no longer a safe place to be, and that uncertainty. Those are some deep concepts, and it's really great to see the show approach that. An added element, too, that I think is really good in this episode is having Quark along on the mission. They find a convoluted way to get him on the mission. It's something that Nagus has required or something. But what happens is Quark becomes that other voice to talk about, question the other side of war. Why are we doing this? Why are we here? We can't, questions.
Or what's it good for?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Or when he observes some of the people who have become, quite honestly, very gung-ho just because that's the way they are coping with their situation, and trying to convince Nog that this is not what
Ferengi.
Look at how you're clutching that phaser rifle. You're holding it as if it was made of pure latinum.
Exactly. It's a different viewpoint.
Yeah.
And so he gets to be that voice that can question what they're doing without having it to be a Starfleet person, because the Starfleet people, once they're there, I mean, they're focused. They are, and even the DS9 people, when they show up, the ship gets attacked. The Defiant gets attacked in orbit, and so has to leave them kind of like stranded for a little while, and they become drawn into the same feeling of, we got to hold this position, and we are the line, and we are going to do this. So those are some of the really great concepts that come up in this episode. What are some of your takes?
One of the, I'm sorry, you want to go first?
No, please.
There's also, talks about some of the horrors of war. I mean, how shell-shocked everyone is, and Nog losing his leg, and how Vic, in the story, the show episode begins with Vic preparing the audio recordings for Julian, and then later on how that is one of the more comforting things that helps Nog get through, having lost his leg and trying to just get through this battle, just getting through, until the end. So yeah.
One of the, it's funny, after watching this episode for the first time in several years, I think the first time you and I saw it, Alan, when we did our DS9 watch through several years ago. And the one thing that got me again, to have Quark there as kind of this opposite point of view as to the necessity of battle or the necessity of war versus some of the trope, and I'll even go so far as to say a certain kind of tropey characterizations of the people who were already at the siege. Somebody who's being the more Rambo-ish type of guy, the guy who's got the Jem'Hadar Ketracel white things hanging around his neck and all of those. There are certain types of tropes, but it doesn't mean diminishes the point. But the one thing that got me again last night that I don't remember having such a palpable reaction to the first time I saw it was the revelation or the reveal of the Houdinis. When they finally get the scanners to work and they're able to show where those minds have been throughout the whole of this siege, and those mines have been laid in subspace and they've been cloaked for all intent and purposes, and that they just kind of go off at random, and if you happen to be near one of them or something like that you end up dying. Now, the Houdinis are kind of lightly used in Star Trek Online, and they're quite effective, and they piss me off in the game. But when you see it in this context and how horrific they are, and you see that one that kind of appears next to the soldier's head, I stopped breathing for a moment, because you kind of go, fuck, this is scary shit. And then to turn that back around, because it was right around there is when Quark is forced to see what's going on in his own way by defending Nog, who's on the table. When the Jem'Hadar comes in and he's forced to make that choice of what's more important, what isn't there always going to be something worth defending? And the idea that things can get so subversive and so scary as to not know what's around you how do you not become paranoid? How do you not become paranoid? It's such a great episode to kind of have these questions, because this is something that was relevant when it was first filmed. It's relevant now. It was relevant 70 years ago. It was relevant 250 years ago. It's going to be relevant in the future. These are all really big questions that, 40 minutes of television time, they did a pretty damn good job of at least bringing those questions up.
Oh, absolutely. When there's actually two moments that I really find notable in the episode, and there's one where Quark talking to Nog, and he's trying to point out, how these Starfleet officers are not the Starfleet officers he's used to dealing with, and it brings up that whole concept of, at any given time, society is, what do they say, 3 meals from anarchy.
Yeah.
He says, here you've got your Starfleet people, but you take away their creature comforts, and you take away their meals, and you take away their full bellies, and you put them in a situation, and they become savages, just as ruthless as a Klingon, and talks about the veneer of our society and such. And I think that's a real poignant point to bring up, is that sometimes you see. You hear stories or you see movies or whatever, and you see how people deteriorate into a different, their personalities change because of the events of the things that happen to them, and how, we're all have that capability. It's just a matter of being in a circumstance.
And if there's anything, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to point out that it's another one of those root beer analysis that Quark does every now and then, and it's true to character, and I thought spot on. I mean, yeah.
But if anything, I think what I liked the most about this is that it's very easy. It's very easy to say it's very easy to say you're a pacifist, and yet it's very difficult to hold that when you have to defend, and
it becomes situational.
It becomes a situational thing, and it's perfect. And it was perfect to show that Quark was put into that position, on top of which he had to, and we will see in later episodes as well, is he has a new appreciation for Nog. Nog is one of those Starfleet officers. He says, these aren't the Starfleet officers you know. Isn't it odd to think that Nog absolutely knew who those Starfleet officers were, because he was one of them to begin with?
Right.
And
right.
Yes, he felt like he might have had something to prove, but that isn't because he wanted to prove himself human as much as he wanted to prove himself Starfleet. And this is when, and I know that Nick will agree, this is when you absolutely start to fall in love with Nog, and he shows that it's not a species characteristic that Quark was so racist and to be able to say this is humans. No, it's not just humans. It's a tribal thing.
It's
and tribal in that greater kind of thing. Huh?
It's anyone dealing with life and death and survival.
Right. It's any core group of people. It's any core group of whatever. And it's not necessarily species specific, and it's not, but Starfleet was what kept them alive. And so to see him learn that lesson, and yet Nog be the one who was already there, was pretty damn awesome.
Right. The second thing I wanted to bring up too is that there's a great comment made. Again, this is about the Houdini mines, and they spend all this effort. They figure out how to decloak them, and they know how to move them. And so then they decide, well, we're going to set these mines in the area that the can't speak.
The
Jem'Hadar come through. God, I can't say it right. What is it?
Jem'Hadar.
Jem'Hadar. I always get it backwards in the bed. The Jem'Hadar. The valley that they're going to come through, they set all the mines in there and then recloak them again. And then and it's Ezri who makes the comment that we were just saying a little bit ago, when we didn't know where they were, what a horrific weapon to wield, and now we're doing it. And then it's one of those moments where, it's reflective of what are we doing? Have we become what we loathe? Or are we doing what we need to survive? And it's not an easy question. And they don't answer it either. I mean, everyone reflects on it and gives them a moment to think about it. But this is when Trek is at its best, putting out those things to make us think about what we do and how we react and what our ethics are and everything. And they don't necessarily answer the question.
Right.
And that's okay, because some of these questions are not answerable.
Yeah.
Just a stellar episode.
Well, I'm just gonna ask, because I know he's waiting in the wings, and I know he's not feeling very well, but I know this is one of Nick's favorite episodes. What say you, my dear?
I've got a lot of thoughts on this episode. Only Deep Space Nine could have done this episode of Star Trek.
Yeah,
I agree.
It would not have worked with The Next Generation. I don't think there's anybody gritty enough on The Next Generation. Next Generation is not a show where their hands got dirty, except for Geordi when he was with the Romulan. Remember that?
Or O'Brien.
Yeah, well, O'Brien's an entirely different cat altogether.
Right.
And Voyager, same thing. It's Enterprise, maybe I could see it, but this is a Deep Space Nine episode. Now, problems I had with this episode. The goddamn necklace of Ketracel White just pissed me off to no end. It just bugged me. It was a trope. It was the Ace of Spades card. It bothered me, but that's minor.
It was the stamp on the side of the airplane.
No. It was a war trophy.
Yeah.
The stamp on the side of the airplane.
It also marked kills. That's how Nog was explaining it to
it
Quark.
just bugged me. Bugged me. Only Quark, really, being that civilian outsider, how can you send Nog with no feeling, and he's Jake's best friend, to play that card, and without realizing that as a commander, this is the price of command.
Right.
The movie Gettysburg had a great line from General Lee that being a commander is twofold. You have to love the very thing that you sometimes have to order the destruction of.
Yeah.
And that's a deep, deep thought. You have to love your army so much, but yet you also have to be willing to order its destruction. And
that's why they call it the weight of command.
And nobody has even mentioned how great Bill Mumy was in this episode.
Oh my God.
I was just about to get to that. Great.
He was. I don't want to say sensitive, but he was an engineer. He's not a soldier. I mean, he is, but he's a technician.
Right.
And Ezri, using Ezri to pull out of him. I think
the engineer guy. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to praise for the actor who played Vargas, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
To use Ezri, the counselor, as the counterweight to him, I thought was a brilliant use. And if you notice, who's down on the planet? It's not Kira, a soldier. It's not Garak, a soldier. Mm-hmm. It's not O'Brien, a soldier. It's Ezri, a counselor. It's Nog, a cadet, really, in basic. And so it's people that are outside of their norm.
Right.
It's putting those, even Jadzia down there would have been having a soldier down there because of everything we've seen her go through with the Klingons and her multiple lives and everything.
Yeah,
so
and Worf is stuck on the ship.
Exactly. So you're having people that are not normally pulling the trigger that are down there. As a matter of fact, ones that are almost never pulling the trigger.
And it was an interesting thing to see Ezri dealing with that.
It was supposed to be a supply mission. They weren't supposed to really be there for that purpose. So they were, really outside their norm. But yeah, that was a good observation, Nick.
The only trigger puller you really see is Sisko from our crew. But again, this is his leadership. This is Sisko being motherfucking Ben Sisko. The Houdini minds you guys have gone over. One thing that really, the direction of this episode had a very World War II era combat TV show kind of feel to it. And like the Houdini minds, you see the flashes going off in the distance, and then hear the charge of the Jem'Hadar as they start to come forward.
It was so well directed, and it showed how...
what's his name? Winrick Kolb. I just looked it up as the director.
It just shows what you can do with a dramatic episode without having to actually show the violence. And I don't mean to say that you don't, and please don't. What I'm saying is it's cheaper. I'm not saying, oh, gee,
Right.
it would have been. The fact of the matter is they did an incredible episode that for the first time in a lot of Star Trek history really shows some really gritty battle.
Nog's scream when he gets hit is chilling.
Yes.
And we all know that I love Aaron and just think the world of him. Now, I started to fall in love with Nog way back when he gave the speech, I don't want to be like my father.
Right.
That to me was the moment that I became a humongous Nog fan. Not because he didn't want to be like Rom, but because of the emotion in that. He wanted to be something more than just another Ferengi. He wanted to stand for something.
Right. It's
And then in the end, when the reinforcements arrive, Reese, what's her name? Reese, the commander that had been with the people on the ground, says children, and then Sisko says not for long.
Yeah. He was the guy who was wearing the Ketracel white necklace because the woman gets killed.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and you're right. It was like, it starts all over again, and yes. And that's kind of what Quark's idea is born from, is that it really is never ending. And you know what? It is one of those things that we kind of love about, like, again, Star Trek is at its best when it asks questions that may not necessarily be answered. And I loved it. I love this episode so very much. It's really, when I said, you know what? That's what DS9 needed. When I said DS9 didn't go far enough, it's because they showed me this episode and showed me what it could do. And we needed to see more of this. It needed, the viewer needed to be drawn into this war more along the lines of this episode than episodes that showed people in front of a wall of names. It was brilliant. It was just exceptionally well done. Shall we move on?
Yeah. Next episode in our list is The Measure of a Man.
Janet's favorite episode.
Really? Because it's legal. It's TNG Season 2, Episode 9. And it's Season 2, so, it's fairly early in the series when it was still trying to find its stride. And what's great about this, again, is, as we talked about in the last episode, it's one of those ones that brings up a question and forces them to face something that they may not have thought about. Although it is a little funny that they're only bringing this question up now when he's already been an officer for who knows how many years. But again,
almost 2 decades, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And now we're going to question whether he's sentient or whether he's property or whether he's an individual. Again, to set up the premise, they come to a starbase, brand new starbase that's been opened up. And we meet Maddox, who works with the Daystrom Institute in cybernetics and has always been kind of following Data and has never really accepted him as an individual. And he wants to do a study. He thinks he's made some breakthroughs, but he's going to have to take Data and disassemble him. And he basically just wants to just take him. He makes a request, and even the Admiral is a little bit dismissive of it. Picard, of course, and Data. Data doesn't want to submit to this, and at every turn, he's thwarted by some regulation, like, oh, well, no, you have to report, and no, you can't resign. And basically, it comes down to, does Data have the rights of an individual, or is he not a sentient being? And then we end up with a courtroom drama to determine that. So that's the premise. And again, asking questions that are difficult. How do you define sentience? How do you define intelligence? How do you define an individual? Very deep questions. And
questions that I think our species is going to have to deal with in the future, not too distant future, more than later. We're coming across some of these questions now.
Little trivia for you on this episode.
What's that?
It's the first episode of TNG to feature a poker game.
And who kicks ass, by the way? I mean, besides Riker. Besides Riker.
Really, Riker is like, Riker should go to Vegas.
Right. Pulaski, man. I'm just telling you, when somebody starts talking about the the axe splitting the pot. I laughed my ass off. Go
and
ahead,
O'Brien was in there. So it's the members of the poker game evolve over time, but yeah,
it just goes to show that it's a constant and that it's a regular thing. Yeah.
It's interesting. The questions of sentience. Well, Mike read my my Nano novel from last year, and spoiler alert, but there's courtroom scenes to prove sentience, and the people who argue it are the people in this show, actually. So yes, these kinds of arguments are going to come out of your mouths in fiction. I hated the Jag bitch. I really did. It was but what I hated about her was not so much her specifically, but again, it's the whole tropey of, oh, lawyers are so by the book, and oh, how terrible, and all this other stuff. Well, but they're just doing their job. And it also annoyed the hell out of me that, okay, she's from JAG, she's been pushed into the Starbase to go there, and she has no staff. JAG is a recognized department of our military, has been since the Revolution, the long time, or something similar, certainly. And
doesn't she say that that this is a new starbase and she's still getting stuff set up? So she was just the first one out.
But still, she should have brought her staff with her. She should have been given the opportunity to bring her staff. They wouldn't have sent a captain out without anybody working for him. The whole idea that there were no lawyers, I thought was absurd. It was a stupid setup. They could have waited.
I thought it was interesting that, okay, so we don't have a lawyer.
They have plenty of botanists, but no lawyers.
Yeah, so
that's dumb.
Well, or we don't have lawyers, but you know what? Just any random Starfleet officer can act as a defendant or a defense and a prosecution because, they're officers, so they know the law. I mean, I just, I mean, even Riker kind of points out the absurdity of it. Like, I'm not qualified for this, and I actually have a bias. Well, screw that. You're going to do it anyway. That's an order.
Yeah, and also that they had biases. They had clear biases. They had enormous conflicts of interest here. So, okay. It was in Riker's best interest for him to lose so that he wouldn't lose an experienced officer under his command.
And friend.
Exactly.
And friend. Yeah.
Now,
that's absurd.
I have a question. I could turn off a human being with a baseball bat. Does that mean he's not sentient?
Not anymore.
Same thing. Okay, so he has an off switch.
But you can't turn him back on.
We all have off switches too.
I don't know. Terry could put somebody into a coma, and they could come out of it.
Exactly.
Is that a euphemism for something else?
You could taser somebody.
So I have one big question. I have one big question for all of you.
Okay.
Would you take or would you work as a subordinate to a computer?
Depends.
Don't we already?
Do you know what I do for a living?
Yeah, but if it told you, now here's the thing: if a computer told you that you had to go,
Mike made me choke.
Like the computer itself, not anybody directing a computer, but the computer itself told you that you needed to go, that drafted you and said you needed to go serve and put yourself in harm's way, would you do it?
Well, hold on a second. There's
a robot. So here, Honda's building robots right now. Yeah, that's my question. Honda's building robots right now. If they get to a point where they are programmed in such a way that we now consider them to be equals, would you think of them as equals?
If they're commissioned as an officer, I join the service.
So a drone
and they outrank me.
Gets to a point where it knows how to deal with a certain thing better than you. You would take orders from the drone.
Okay, but let's go back to the episode. That's the whole point.
Right.
Is they try to make the one side tries to say he's just a machine. He's not, whatever. And then they come back and say, well, if he's just a machine, then why does he keep mementos? Why does he, it starts to go into the side of he's more than just the sum of his parts. He has something else. There's an essence to him. And that was the point, is that where do we call the line on that? If a computer just comes up with no personality and, I would say that's not sentience, or not as I understand it at this point. But the character of Data has proven over and over again that not only, he's a machine, but he makes decisions, and sometimes not always based on just the logical choice. He transcended the logic of just straight binary code into someone who is a thinking individual. And that's the difference.
Let me ask you a question. Who wants an orange whip? Orange whip? Orange whip? Three orange whips.
You want an orange whip?
Well,
Now I know where you are in the movie.
Did you guys the AI that Microsoft threw up onto Twitter?
Right.
They developed a teenage AI, released it on Twitter, and 24 hours later it was spouting Hitler, sex, and
It became a troll.
And it's like, okay. So, as long as AIs are still that malleable, I don't think we have anything really to worry about. But
Well, is it really? My question is it really? Or is it just doing what comes naturally? And we're doing the same thing, just albeit on a different chemical level.
Well, consider your question about, would you work under a computer that just said, hey, you've got to go out and serve, and would do it under a binary code basis? Well, this is pretty much the premise of the TOS episode, A Taste of Armageddon.
Right. It is something that science fiction has dealt with over and over and over again ever since RUR was written at the beginning of the 20th century.
Hi, James.
And how do we are creating, and we are currently doing it now. We are creating sets of software and computers that are, by our current definition of cognizant or cognition, are that way. They are thinking, and what is to say feeling? What is to say feeling? We feel, but we are a different. Like Picard says in this, we are merely biological computers. So
right. Do we remember why people hated Pulaski so much? Because she asked these questions about Data.
Yeah.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, here's the thing: is that if this species ever got to a point where we were creating androids that were not unlike or were like Data, I would still have a very hard time having sex with one of them.
That's because you're not a guy. It's because you're not a guy. I mean, look at what's going on in Japan. Now, let me ask you a question then. Taking this further into Star Trek.
He's just a huge vibrator.
Would you allow a hologram to do surgery on you?
A hologram?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, they do it in Voyager.
And remember, he's supposed to be sentient, but he could be erased in a second.
He's really software. He's not even hardware.
Yeah, he's software. He could be erased. You put a magnet next to him, he could go away.
Well, and that's the question that comes up over and over and over again in Star Trek. And at the end of this episode, they don't rule him as sentient. She actually says, "I don't know." She pushes it off. She says, "I don't know, but I can't say no that he's not, and therefore I'm going to give him the rights for us to find out."
Janet, what did you think of that?
Cop out. Cop out. Yeah, that was absurd. You're here for a ruling. You don't get to weasel out of it and try to split the difference. You had two choices for a ruling, and you decided for the middle of them. No.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
You don't make law. That you're not the level where you make law. Law is made by people we elect, not by people who we appoint to adjudicate it. Those are separate.
Exactly. But getting back to
me hard.
Getting back to the point I was going to...
You're sick. It's the fever.
Okay. The point I was going to make, though... Are we done?
Nice.
The point I was going to make, though, is that this continues to come up again and again. And I want to talk about an episode that comes up later in the series. It's actually the one where there's the Romulan invasion. And Data is given command of the Sutherland temporarily as part of the blockade. And he has a first officer who has a problem taking orders from an android. And so it's not a question that's ever answered. It's still out there. There are still people who can't accept that. And it's brought up over and over again. And then again, it's brought up in Voyager with the Doctor. Is he a sentient being? He starts to become more than his programming ever existed and becomes that aberration. And at what point is he got the full rights and of an individual?
Do you know what points I love Data the most?
Was
Whenever they leave Data in command, whether it's on the Sutherland or on the Enterprise, and Worf is XO, there's a subtle change to Data. Because, like, remember, Worf kept contradicting and arguing with him in person and all of that. When Data has to lay down the law, it is some of the best Data moments.
Yeah, his command Data is great.
I love command Data. I really do. And we had a talk in a G&T staff meeting about Brett Spiner as Data, which we won't go into here, where I said something that might get me stabbed in the eye by a bunch of Star Trek fans. But I think command Data is some of the very best stuff that he did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the other thing too, is the Data is also, just like any other Starfleet officer, assumes the mantle of what's happening at the time. If he's given command, then he has to be in command, and he steps up.
And the chemistry with Michael Dorn was so good when Worf was the first officer and Data's in command of the Enterprise, and then he says, "I hope this has not ruined our friendship," and then Worf says, "I'm the one at fault here," whereas Data, having literally no emotion, is able to just separate those things out, whereas anybody else, there would have been something lingering in one way or another. And maybe that's part of the whole sentience thing, is how can nothing be lingering?
Right.
Because even with Vulcans, as Janice so always says, they have emotion, they just suppress them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did find an interesting trivia thing about this episode, because it's funny, because we were talking a little bit about the JAG officer, the captain, and how she reacted and everything like that. I have to admit, I think her performance kind of irritates me a little bit, and that is because sometimes it seems like her acting is done through facial smirks, and so I looked up the actress's profile on IMDb. Interestingly, she was a singer-songwriter, and one of her most notable songs that she's written was, she wrote the song "The Rose" for the Bette Midler movie.
Oh, really?
That's according to IMDb, yeah.
Wow.
So her career was really more in music than it was as an actress.
That's a pretty big song to write, too.
That's what I thought, too. And I'm surprised we don't know more about her in that aspect, in that part of her career. So,
who is this?
The actress Amanda McBroom, who played the JAG captain.
Played Philippa?
Yeah.
The JAG bitch.
It's so funny. I actually love her. I don't know, namely because she doesn't take any grief.
Well, then it's a good thing that you were letting the dogs out at the moment, because I just kind of...
You went off on her?
Yeah.
Wait, who let the dogs out?
Woof, woof, woof. Yeah.
Oh.
God, fever.
Well, either way, this was the episode that Melinda Snodgrass got so much rave review, and I think really did start, was one of the things that really helped kickstart her career from law, because Melinda Snodgrass is also a retired attorney now, but she's now writing and has been writing science fiction and fantasy ever since. And it really kind of kickstarted her career, and kind of cool, because I'm hopefully going to meet her again. And Alan doesn't know this, but I just bought tickets for a conversation an interesting conversation that's going to take place here in Albuquerque on June 16th or June 15th, where George R.R. Martin is going to interview Stephen King. So
we're going?
Yep.
Awesome.
I know.
Good for you.
It's going to be very fun. And the reason why that brought up was because Melinda Snodgrass is George R.R. Martin's kind of bestie. She was his woman of honor, or best woman, I guess, at his wedding. And they're both kind of locals here in Santa Fe. But she's currently working on a couple of different television shows, and it shows that, you write one episode that becomes so, again, a lot of people love this episode because it is so Star Trek. It is something that asks a lot of questions that we can't necessarily answer. Both of these episodes had that in common, and I think it's really remarkable how I think they're going to keep getting better. So, Alan, what do we have for next week?
Well, we are Oops, sorry, I kicked out there. We are up to.
Oop, are you there?
So, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm on push to talk, so I keep having to move my cursor around. Anyway, number 16 is a DS9 episode. It's from season 1, episode 18, Duet.
Ooh.
And then our second episode, our number 15 in the countdown, is also a DS9 episode. This is from season 4, episode 1, The Way of the Warrior.
Awesome.
So those are our episodes for next week.
Very cool. I'm excited about Way of the Warrior.
Of course you are.
It's a fake. Sorry. Mikey, any announcements?
I have something to say. Announcements!
We have lots of them.
The O Sports Show, they premiered their debut episode last weekend. If you have not checked it out, I'll include a link in the show notes. Their next episode should be out. Today. Yes, I've been talking to Scott during the Measure of the Man discussion, and he's worked out the technical issues. He's working on his show notes. It's going out today, so a link for that will be in the show notes.
Yay, sports show.
Let's see. Straight Out Gallifrey, we had an episode, so check that out. It was fun. I've got a fanfic story, so check out Jim the Fish. Yeah, so that's all I can think of at the moment. I'm tired. I'm going back to bed.
Janet, once again, thank you so very much for your. Seriously, I'm loving every single thing that you do for us and with us, and we have just a great time. Nick, I hope you feel better.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Feel better,
and
Nick.
Kojiro, I love you.
The feeling is mutual.
Stop.
I'm overclamped. You know, I got a marriage proposal in the chat room.
I noticed.
I'm considering it. And when Jay listens to this episode later, I think he might have something to say about that.
That's great.
Your pimp?
My husband.
Oh. Yes. So then, yes, he's your pimp.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Oh, man.
Them's fighting words.
Well, that kind of does it for this week's episode of 233, taking place on April 17th, 2016. And until next time, when you can join us for episode 234, and God knows what date that'll be. It's 7 days from now. So what that's I don't fucking care.
24th.
Thank you. Until then, live long and prosper.
Kapla.
Infringement is futile. Thanks for listening.
Catch you later.
Lost him. We lost him. Oh my God, he's in a coma.
Just say
I
it.
got booted.
That was hilarious. Say it.
I got booted.
Say it.
Joel Untrue cunts.
Music for the GNT show is provided by 5 Year Mission, Enterprise Blues Band, Warp 11, Andrew Allen, and Grethor. The GNT show is a BLB production.
Move ahead, walk back to 10. Put a mini skirt on Mayo Man. Represent the human race. And we make space a happy place. To boldly go where no man's gone before. I think I sang that line once before, but I'm not too sure. We'll be so happy, can't you see? A zero-G community. Gonna travel to new worlds. Beam on down and meet some green girls. Gonna see what we can see. A fancy free galaxy. To boldly go where no man's gone before. I think I sang that line Bonds or Kobe.